Hey, all you La La Landers out there. It's been a few weeks since I've posted anything. I feel like I'm in a safe enough, confident enough space to where I can talk about a couple of things that have gone on in my life recently that I'd like to share, given that a lot of the things I talk about, I try to relate to our holistic fitness and health. Why it is we do the things we do or don't do the things that we decide not to do. How that impacts your physical health, your emotional health, controlling your emotions, being able to do that for better behavior. So, and essentially overcoming things like mental resistance, like self-doubt, lacking your self-love, self-respect, self-dignity. We build those things up over time. That's what I Motivate Me was all about to start with, the Fitness and Health Investment Initiative. It's a holistic approach. You can't just have physical fitness, but constantly being bombarded with chemical hormones. That's inflammation. And this is why we see a lot of disorder and disease in the world around us. This goes for our health, but it also goes for our relationships. And I want to talk about relationships specifically. I'll just put it right out there now. I feel safe enough to where I can speak about this without impeding on anybody's egos or anything. I feel like I've taken the necessary steps to ensure that this message is for people who understand or care to listen with a non-biased lens. So I was in a relationship, and over the last 8 months, and that seems like a short time. It was a romantic relationship, and never in my life would I talk about this if I didn't feel like it was something that a lot of people are unknowingly experiencing out there. Keep in mind, we have a lot of people who are using dating apps. I've never used a dating app before. I understand what people are going through and what we are exposed to on a daily basis. I understand the effects of our childhood and the broken homes. You have divorce rates that are higher than ever in this country, and there are consequences for that in the short term and long term for your children, how they behave as young adults. And I only say this because I had to learn my anxious attachment style, to where if you don't have a father in the household that's there to teach you self-love, self-respect, and self-dignity, you end up having to be validated by external things. So you go and seek those things, and during your relationships you end up being triggered emotionally by things. When you develop expectations, for example, and those may be unrealistic expectations that that person can't meet to validate you, you go seek it from others. And now we have to talk about narcissistic tendencies and things like that. So I talk about these things because I had to reflect and realize the impact that it had on my previous relationships, people I loved and cared about. I have feelings, I have emotions, I have the capacity to love, but at the same time, why is it that I found myself heartbroken? And I didn't want to do that. And so you take time to heal, and when you realize the magnitude of influence that your past has on you and the things that we are exposed to on a daily basis. We're exposed to fearful, angry, violent things on a daily basis, and we go out there and project those things onto each other in many ways. And then because you have access to everybody, dating apps, social media, it's unlimited out there. For you women especially, I mean, the options are pretty much unlimited if you think about it. And so I feel I can talk about this because it's something that's impacted me more than anything else ever has in my life. I've experienced many things, I've experienced heartbreak, I've experienced things, but I'm coming to learn about what's called avoidant attachment. And this is like a psychological attachment trope of relationships, where a person loves you But when it gets to the point of intimacy, where like emotional intimacy, let's say, where you start to really get to know somebody and you open up with somebody and you're being healthy, you're being genuine, sincere, honest, open. And that time comes where you start to really get to know each other. That requires two people willing to be vulnerable about who they actually are. And in the moment where one person expresses themselves and opens up with trust and self-confidence and comes from a place of abundance, let's say, you go from being an anxious attachment to more of a secure version of yourself, right? You build these characteristics and these aspects of who you are, your identity, over time with your virtues, with foundational principles. I talk about all this in I Motivate Me. I have for years. You can open up and you feel confident that you're able to do that while living within your frame, living through your purpose. And when you do that, you attract others to you. And so when this is the case and you open up, the other person will be deathly afraid. And they find a way to not engage. And so over time, your honeymoon phase fades away. The intimacy, like the emotional intimacy. When I say intimacy, I'm not necessarily talking about physical intimacy. I'm talking about opening up, expressing your love, expressing how you're feeling. When you set boundaries, when you have boundaries and those boundaries are tested, to be able to communicate and say, yeah, this kind of bothered me, or I felt uncomfortable about it, and this is why. Oftentimes, avoidant people will be indifferent about it and they won't express any reflection on it. There's no resolution. It is what it is. You're feeling the way you're feeling, and that's that. There's no reflection. There's no feedback. There's emotional vacancy, in a sense. And when you're around a person more frequently, you find yourself in a position where the person's there, but they're not. You're not engaged. Yet, when they're comfortable and they're secure, they can run back to you and have that secure, that security, that emotional sense of security that you are there and you're willing to listen. You're willing to be there for that person. And because you're genuine and sincere, you move forward with things. You start to sacrifice or compromise. You make compromises, all while trying to maintain some sense of self. Now, over time, what happens is the person continues to be detached in many regards emotionally from you, even though they give you little hints here or there. They tell you they love you. They do certain things sometimes. That's fine. That's great, but it's few and far between. And there's a point where communication just doesn't exist. Things are left unresolved, and you end up compromising the integrity of who you are. And if a part of who you are is your self-respect, self-love, and self-dignity, and you start to feel like you have to over-explain yourself because you're coming from a place of needing reassurance, you start to make decisions like, okay, I love this person, I'm not going anywhere, but this is not healthy for me. I'm going to rely on my virtues, my meditations. I'm going to rely on prayer. I'm going to rely on keeping myself healthy, exercise, staying as focused as I can, even though you've been sacrificing a lot of your energy away from your purpose. Remember, your purpose means that you are engaged in what it is that you know you're doing in your life, and it's bringing life to you. Life flows naturally through you, for you, with you. And others share that with you. The people who are attracted to those things share that frame with you. They share that purpose with you. They become a part of it. But over time that erodes and you start betraying that. And your intuition kicks in and you try to compromise with it. You try to work with it. You try to communicate. Communication doesn't work very well. And so over time, you start to betray yourself more and more. You become less of who you are, and you become a person trying to seek validation, trying to seek reassurance, and you're giving away your energy. And when you give away your energy and your information, you create less tension. There's more unknown there. There's less tension, and there's therefore less attraction. Now, there's more anxious tension, and it seems like the other person started to create a narrative of getting away from things. Even though you're engaged, you're still like making plans, you're still making arrangements, you're still making life plans with this person, but something's not right. And it turns out that when we have avoidant type of attachment trends or patterns, we have people who are deathly afraid of being vulnerable. They've created their own independent having their own independent sense of security. It's like their self-security, where they'll protect it at all costs. And that stems from childhood, perhaps. That's usually what happens when it's not acceptable to display your vulnerabilities, your intimate emotions, and how you feel. And so, in the moment when someone expresses themselves and lets you know, okay, this is real, to that person it becomes survival. They have this sense of emotional independence, and they can't let you in. This is where you've heard people talk about having a wall, like a security wall, and they don't let people in. And so even though on the surface you're getting a surface or superficial engagement and experience with this person, you're not connecting. And this is like the spiritual chemistry, like spirituality, like being the energetic state of commonality with someone. That's where your chemistry comes from. You don't have that connection, you lose it very quickly. That actually, I say quickly, sometimes you do. If you're really secure, you lose that attachment, that connection quickly. You realize it, and a lot of people do certain things. They try to fix it really quickly, or they take a step back and they be patient with it. And so for secure people, they tend to be a little more patient with it and process it. And this was my deal. But over the time, you start to realize that, goodness gracious, I am literally I'm betraying myself a little bit. And I wonder like how much of what I've been working towards is going to have to be sacrificed. So you start setting more boundaries, and it gets to the point where you have to set some radical boundaries. And they're not even necessarily boundaries that have to stay. They just have to be discussed, and they have to be confronted. You set the radical boundary, we're right here. I'm not moving forward from here. Like, we're going to talk about these things. I'm asking you, this is important to me. Let's talk about it. And there's no resolution. And so a person who just the day before tells you they're in love with you, they are looking forward to being together and living together and these things. You've made these plans. You're in the middle of making these arrangements. And the very next day, they don't see a path forward. They have no resentment in their heart for you, and they wish you the best, and that's it. And now I'm not going to move forward with anything there. You get the last word. I'm shocked, disappointed, hurt, And I have to admit that in all of my years, I've never experienced a hurt like a heartbreak like this before. I'm not angry at the person. I'm not upset because I understand what is going on when we have things in our lives that affect how our nervous systems respond to things in life. I've spent many years, I always say that it's a heal. Like from here on out, if you're an American, most likely you've experienced a lot of trauma from the material world that we're living in. We have access to access, and if you think that it doesn't have a negative effect on your, like, who you are and how we end up treating each other, unfortunately, there are repercussions for the way that we've been living. And that's not to say that we're not to live our lives, treat people well, be nice, be sincere, be genuine, be honest, all right? And learn to forgive yourself. And in that event, you don't have to worry about forgiving other people. We live in that light, right? But there are things in this universe that try to take that from you. So here we are, and it's a really interesting thing because I have no resentment. I have no that resentment and anger. I simply take it, or sadness. I don't really have anger, but the sadness, I have to take it and redirect that energy towards me and realize that I've been living in a place of lacking and needing reassurance instead of a place of abundance, and I have to get back to that. So this has not become about that person. They are going to have to wake up one day in their life, and I wish them the best and all the peace, love, and joy that I know everyone seeks in their lives. I hope they get that. And what I do know is that this was one of the most traumatic experiences that I've faced. And now, I was more of a secure person. I can't imagine someone who really isn't aware. They're not at that level of awareness yet to have self-reflected on themselves and taking responsibility for even themselves. And so these people with these avoidant discards, if you are on the receiving end of it, it is a brutally traumatic thing. And you can't help but wonder. They say that up to 25% of the population in America have some form of avoidant attachment style. And if you look at these the fantasy romance smut novels, if you look into those things, the authors of those books actually pander to these attachment style tropes, these psychological tropes. So they're basically pandering to people's childhood trauma. All right, and so a person's able to actually escape into fulfilling these emotionally and romantically intimate scenes and narratives without having to invest any emotional responsibility themselves. And so do you see where this dynamic comes into play? You're not giving it to your partner because you fear it, yet you can find it within the books. And other things, it's not just the books. There are other ways that people find their emotional, intimate relief. When you're not in love with someone else, for example, you find it easier to be yourself for a short period of time because you're able to stay secure or hidden from those people that you can keep at arm's length. But when it's an intimate person close to you that you know you're going to eventually have to share things, otherwise the love is not reciprocated, you're not sharing anything, and therefore you're not sharing the same experience. It's two different people and two different experiences. And so this is what we're facing in this world today, where we have these attachment things, these tropes, and you have two people with two different identities trying to protect themselves, but at the same time, one's willing to be open and honest and loving and sincere. Not to say that I didn't overstep boundaries myself. I certainly did. And those were times when you become anxious and emotional. And when you catch yourself doing it, it's not comfortable because you're confronting something with probably poor timing. You're probably not saying whatever it is you're trying to say. You're not saying it the way that you would like to have said it. And and then you go back and you say, man, okay, I failed with my management, my emotional management. And obviously with that, I'm failing at managing this relationship that I'm trying to build. And when you have a person actually say to you, I feel like you're trying to tear me down brick by brick. And that is one of the most, I know they didn't mean to be hurtful, but my response was, no, I'm actually trying to let you into my life and build something with you. I'm not trying to tear you down. I'm trying to build a home with you. And this is what conversation I'm trying to have with you. And it was past the point of no return from that point forward. And it's very sad. And it's a very hurtful experience. I've never felt anything like it. And that's not being dramatic. So for those of you out there who have experienced an avoidant, if you're not familiar with what avoidant attachment is, I highly recommend looking into it. It's going to teach you so much about not only the other person to develop empathy and understanding, but also about yourself and how it's important to be able to communicate and manage these things when you sense these patterns, these behavioral patterns that happen. This is not to discredit anybody. It's not to be upset with anybody, but this is going on out there, and we are experiencing this in the world today. And it's very important to arm yourself with knowledge and information about it, to have a better understanding about it. And in doing so, you learn how to manage your relationships. And that, a friend of mine talks a lot about the importance of friendships. Okay. And now I keep my circle really small. I have a lot of friends. I could catch up instantly with anybody from the past. I keep in touch with people, but as far as my daily routine and who I see on a normal basis, it is a very small group of people. And that's just me. Now, I can go out there and meet new people and be friendly and things like that. That's really great. But the importance of managing these relationships is understanding what other people's needs are. Because a lot of times we think we're listening, but even though you're listening, if you're not really understanding what's going on, it's very hard to fully listen and hear and understand what they're saying. You try to over-explain, and therefore you're becoming a person who's being loud and overbearing to that person who just wants to be heard. You're injecting yourself into an emotional conversation when you should be protecting your energy, because not all you're doing, you don't need two emotional people talking. One can talk and one can simply listen and understand, or try to understand and empathize with that person, because I knew that this person was hiding a lot. I read it very well. It's what I was trained to do. This is how I survived in combat. This is how I have had success in many regards. I have empathy. When that person chooses to come around and start to wish to reflect, they're not in pre-contemplative or contemplative phase of behavioral change. They are wanting, they're right there, they want to take action. They're contemplating, what can we do? How can I relate to this person that they are in a safe place to make the change. They are in a secure place. And if they make the change, they're going to find that they're only going to empower themselves moving forward, and that there are going to be benefits that maybe they can't see in the mirror initially. In the long run, they will. How do we communicate that? And it's with empathy, and it's with listening. And oftentimes what I'm learning is that the more you know, the more you don't know. And it's important to understand these things. As upset as I want to be, and I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of testimonials on this over the last few weeks here, and you see a wide variety of reactions in the comment sections, or on Reddit, or on Quora, or whatever you call it. And some people are angry. Some people are resentful. They're hurtful. Other people are conflicted. They want to understand better. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like an up and down thing where okay, I know what this person did and it's not acceptable to me. And the person decided just to leave me hanging coldly with no resolution, with confusion, with what the hell just happened. Like what in the world happened? Because I know I was doing everything right. I know I was doing everything right. I know for a fact I was doing everything right. And you're honest, you're open, you're sincere. And that's what I talk about, like being able to hang your hat on. This year, your New Year's resolution, whether you want to rebrand yourself or you're hanging in the pocket and learning from your experience in life, sometimes those difficult things, the things that are difficult, that difficulty is safeguarding that which you value the most. So you hang in the pocket and you learn from that difficulty and build yourself up with some self-respect, self-love, self-dignity. Whether you think you failed or not, failure actually is success. And then you use that foundation that you built through that experience to propel yourself forward to be more resilient in times like this. Now you've developed some tools that you can use to have a better understanding, man. Because I am a sharp, hardened killer who is soft inside and out and only wishes to hold myself into account, hold myself in abundance, and then share that, emanate that throughout the world. Just as I walk down the road, smile with somebody, share an interaction with somebody, be inspired around people. That's what I want to do. It sounds cliche. It sounds like mumbo jumbo motivational speaking stuff. It's not really even that, because motivation is an emotional state, and that you can't continue that emotional path. It's physiologically impossible. You need a break. So you have to be able to rely on these things that you build over time. And that comes with an experience like this. And that's what I've been learning. And I thought I'd share that. So the emotional or the avoidant attachment or discard. For those who have familiarity with it, I'd love for you to leave either a comment or a message, because this has everything to do with what we do moving forward. I can't look back. I have no choice. I used to tell people, I tell people that there's a choice to make. Once you start to realize what's going on, now you have two choices. Do you want to live in that old way, that old low vibration, or do you want to set higher standards for yourself, even if it's just little standards? It doesn't matter. Little standards or big standards, it's all the same. You're improving yourself, seeking self-improvement. It's a leadership trait or leadership principle. So you build those foundations and move forward with those things. I tell people again, you have two choices to make, right? Getting back to that, you have two choices to make. Now I don't have a choice. Now that you really have been bombarded with some stuff, some wild, crazy, dark stuff that you didn't understand, you really this is going to propel me into the next phase of my life, because when this happens, and you have to overcome the pain and discomfort that has been awarded to me at this point, and you continue to take your steps forward and push through and try to stay focused and organized anyway. Imagine whenever you get your vibration back. And so you be patient with yourself and realize that you really don't have a choice now. Now that you really know what you're up against and what's out there, are you going to succumb to fear and become the avoidant yourself and just put up a brick wall? Or do you move forward with love, compassion, understanding, and empathy in this world and set your boundaries and be firm in them? Do not be afraid to protect yourself while not shutting other people and other things out, because love is out there, friendship is out there, and that's what the beauty of friendship is to be able to manage other people's needs. Everyone has their own needs. We all have our own intentions in this world, and those intentions all conflict one way, they interact one way or the other in the event stream. All right. We all have our own special interests and attention, and sometimes those things are in contention. But we manage them through friendships. We manage them through personal and professional relationships. And then the most important relationship is with yourself and how you manage that. And that's what this has been really about. I have to take into consideration, or number one, what in the hell happened? Why did you allow yourself into that? What led up? What was your mindset? And why did you allow yourself to betray yourself in certain ways? Knowing, having a feeling and a sense of what was going on. All right, so there's that. I'm glad I could get that off my chest a little bit and share that with people. I've been staying on the down low, and it's been needed. So everyone have a great day.